Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tabletopped. Today, I have a really great episode for everybody because, we get messages in sometimes about some of the stuff we talk about because we are always talking about how to, get people in the moment, how to kind of express your characters, or as a GM, how are you supposed to sort of incite your players to want to role play with each other, or how can you facilitate that? Well, I got the guy who wrote the goddamn class on the subject. My good friend, comedy legend, John Serpico. How are you, John?
Hello, my friend. I'm doing very, very well.
Excellent. I'm really glad for you to be on Tabletop with us today. Usually for a first-time guest, we just ask our first question as why are you into TTRPGs? Why are you talking to me right now? How'd you get into the hobby? What's up?
Sure. So I've been into TTRPGs since I was a teenager. I was asked to be in a game, maybe 16, and it became apparent that I was very much the most enthusiastic member of this group. And so I ended up running it for a little while, and then me and my buddies all went to different schools and all. But I carried the I carried the torch with me as I crested into adulthood. So I'm in my 40s now, so I've been playing or running games for over 25 years.
Yeah.
And, I jumped into it because my friend said, "Hey, do you want to do X?" And normally if friends of mine say, "Hey, do you want to do X?" my answer is always, "Yeah, try it." But I stuck with it because it is some of the most interesting storytelling you can do. It's collaborative storytelling. It's writing a book and everybody's the author. A friend of mine once said, "Some of my favorite memories are of things that didn't actually happen."
Yeah.
And that has been rattling around in my head since I heard that. So
yeah, I was talking to a behavioral psychologist on this, and they were talking about how TTRPGs are great for therapeutic, uses because your brain can't tell whether a moment that you created at a table with your friends, like a story moment, it can't really tell very well once it's just a memory like everything else, if that happened or not. So it puts the value on them the same. Mm-hmm. So when you think back about, some of your favorite moments with your friends and you're a group that plays TTRPGs, there's, the time that the rogue got eaten by a troll and somebody had to dive in after him or whatever, those memories come out with the same value as memories of, going to get ice cream together or whatever, because you were all there. So I think that's a really, a great way to put why you stick with the hobby. But John, we're not talking about all that sentimental garbage. Today, we're talking a little bit about sort of, like I said, you actually teach a class through Nova and other places about how to act your character, and as a GM, how you can facilitate great sort of, acting at your table or storytelling at your table. This is something that I think about all the time because every table feels different. So let's start with somebody who, as an example, is just joining the hobby, has heard maybe some actual plays, is interested in the mechanics. It's just like a gamer in general. They sit down, but they feel kind of uncomfortable. For the first few years I played TTRPGs, I used third person for most of the time, being Bill really did like that. Just
Bill would like to talk to the bartender. Bill would like to assess his feelings about his parents. There's comfort in that disconnect.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, with your experience, how would you go about turning this person who's not very sure of themselves? What advice are you giving them so that they can really jump in and start being a major part of the group? You know what I mean?
Sure. So the advice I generally give is that improvisation, acting, the kind of immersive play of a character that you do to move from third person to first person. Mm-hmm. There are a million different ways to do it, and none of those ways are wrong. The class I teach, I teach kind of a base class and then variations of it, but the base class I teach is called improvisation and role playing. Mm-hmm. And it's not an acting class. It's a class on how to improvise. And, for folks that are new to gaming, improvisation and acting may feel like the same thing, but they're different.
Mm-hmm.
Improvisation is simply taking certain techniques and processes, certain rules,
Mm-hmm.
and applying them to a conversation. And so what I tell people that are new to gaming that are a little hesitant to, act, so to speak, is acting is not a part of this. All you have to do is feel some kind of connection to your character and do a little something
Mm-hmm.
to strengthen that connection. And that could be anything at all. So one approach I take when I'm simply coaching players
Mm-hmm.
is I'll say to them, describe your character in a way that doesn't reference anything on the character sheet.
Mm-hmm.
If they have a high strength and low charisma, you can talk about that, but it's not, my character is named Bill and he's got a strength of 18 and a charisma of 6.
Mm-hmm.
No. I would say just describe them like you would be describing a friend of yours. And then maybe that person will say, still in third person, oh, Bill, yeah, he's really strong. He's awkward around people, but I think he's got a good heart.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, oh, that's great. Well, how does Bill dress? Well, Bill dresses for comfort, really. Big, heavy boots and nice warm furs. Oh, cool. Why does he do that?
Yeah.
Does he wear that even when he's inside? You kind of generate a bit of a conversation, and they're still talking about this person in the third character, but they're separating at that point the character from the concept of just a pile of numbers and dice.
Yeah.
And
that's
once
really interesting. I like that idea of a place to start, because so many people, especially folks who are coming from maybe like a board game or a video game background. Video game, maybe you're a little bit more comfortable in like playing a character in whatever story. But like a board game, you're coming from, like quacks, like people are like, I understand like, numbers and percentages and like how often I'm going to hit something with this dice, in theory.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of cold turkey transition someone from like Twilight Imperium to a game where it's like, so tell me about your feelings. It's like, no, I command mighty fleets. But
I like, the forceful separation of the character sheet from the character, I think is something that often we don't do. We don't take the time to do, because sometimes you sit down, like the way I create a character at this point is like, okay, I'm going to roll everything random because that's how I like to do it. And then let me try to use this sheet to sort of concoct a character. But I do like the idea of like, I want to play a warrior. I've made a warrior. I've made it so that it looks like all the numbers are where they're supposed to be. And now I'm going to think about how come. So I said that he used a sword, but why did he choose a sword other than any of the other weapons that are on offer in D&D? Like that can be a really good way into like feeling more comfortable, and like you said, a connection with that character that
absolutely
is just for you.
And for folks that do theatrical improv, like improv on stage for audiences, when they walk on stage, when an improviser walks on stage and starts talking as a character, they don't have 20, 30, 40 different things about the character that they know.
Yeah.
They'll walk on stage, and that's the big secret of improv is you walk on stage, you really don't know what's going to happen. You just need to give yourself, the term for non-improv folks is an offer. Yeah. You need to give yourself an offer. You need to give your scene partner an offer. You could walk on stage and bend over and tie your shoes. And all you know at that point about your character is that they have bent over and tied their shoes. Yeah. And that's all you need to know. And I think in terms of character creation, you can also just give your character an offer and go from there. Like I'm in a game right now as a player, not a GM. And I don't know why this idea popped into my head, but all I had, my little kernel of a character, my little offer to myself was mansion full of ghosts. So I was playing a character who can't go home because his mansion is full of ghosts. Mm-hmm. And then in improv, you do this thing called if this is true, what else is true? In theatrical improv, that happens on stage. You bend over and tie your shoes, and your scene partner might say to you, Hey, feeling good about the race in a couple of minutes? Okay, now I'm tying my shoes because I'm about to run a race.
Yeah.
Well, if that's true, what else is true? Oh, yeah, just a little nervous. It's one of my nervous habits. I tie and retie my shoes. Okay, now we learn more about the character. So you start with a little kernel, and then you build up from there. So my character is, okay, he's got a mansion full of ghosts. Well, if he's got a mansion, that means he's probably rich. Okay, cool. That means something in Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, well, he can't go home because his mansion's full of ghosts. That means he may be rich, but he's not powerful. If he was super powerful, he'd go in there and be like, out, ghosts.
Yeah.
But no, he has nothing to his name. And so now all of a sudden you have a character that was kind of kicked out of his hometown. He's far from his resources. All of the skills and things he knows are based around living in a mansion. But that mansion's now full of ghosts.
Yeah.
So now he's a guy with like a trunk full of nice clothes, very little in terms of, real world skills, and he has to find a way for himself.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you got a character and you start from a kernel.
Yeah.
And as a player, like if you're a player that's new to role-playing games, that's a really good thing to do. But it's hugely important for a game master, regardless of the setting, to create an environment for those players to kind of dive into that improv self. So a lot of what I teach, some of it's for players, and I have a version of this class I teach just for players, but a lot of what I do is talking to the game masters or the aspiring game masters and telling them, hey, you've seen live plays and everyone seems to be having a really good time and you want to do the same. Here's how you get to do that.
Yeah.
These are the techniques you use to turn all of your players into improvisers as you and they define the word.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to, this is sort of at an angle from the conversation we're currently having, but I think that it's just like a question that I've had for myself for a very long time, which is that playing these games, like you said, it's such a unique way of telling a story. It's so collaborative. Everyone's together and they have authorship rights to what's going on as you're all playing. So the question I kind of have for you is, when you're playing a character, how do you stay consistent when the actual function of the game itself is that maybe you only meet every month, maybe you meet every 2 weeks, maybe if you're lucky you meet every week, and so like the feelings that you might be having as this character, like goals or things that are very prominent in your head, can fade over the course of 2 weeks or a month. And you come back into the story and you're in a completely different mood. You're in a completely different place. You have different goals. And so like, how can you as a player, try to stay somewhat consistent with your character in the way that allows people to tell stories and feel like this is a fully fleshed person going through something, rather than, I'm a goblin that just likes to steal stuff and do whatever comes to mind?
Right. That's a great question, because I'm willing to bet a lot of players don't necessarily think like that. They think, okay, I'm playing in 3 weeks, and then they show up, and then, it might be you're an hour into the game before you really feel like you're in the character again or whatever. There are a few different ways to kind of stay connected. And a lot of them I'm just kind of directly borrowing from kind of theater techniques. Yeah. First and foremost, and it's a very silly thing, but I'm a big fan of costuming. Now, like, you don't have to wear a wizard hat or anything.
But you should want to.
But you should want to wear a wizard hat. They're comfortable. If you pay good money, you get it fit to your head.
Sometimes it comes with some wig action in there as well to keep your neck warm.
I stitch mine right in because I don't want to bring two things. I bring one thing.
Yeah.
But costuming, I think for a player playing their character, could be as simple as a set of dice you only use for that character.
Yeah.
Like you can go and granted, some people are dice goblins and they have a giant bag full of a million different kinds of dice and they just reach in and grab them and all that. But I think it's really cool as, when you build your character. I'm a big fan of session zeros. That's another conversation entirely, but you build your character. Ideally, you're building it with your GM and the other players. Yeah. You'll get a vibe from that first session. Okay, he's got a mansion full of ghosts. He's far from home. I should go buy some dice for this guy. And then just whenever you're free, go to a gaming store and just buy some dice. Something about them. Like you can get, fine Chess X dice or anything like that for like
There's
$7 or $8.
some really great ones on Etsy too, where they will put whatever you fucking want in the middle of those dice. Like you could get a mansion full of ghosts in there.
Yes, like I need the D20 to be a mansion and everything else to be ghosts. And someone on Etsy's like, I got you.
Yeah, exactly.
But for a low price or a whole high price or anything in between, get some dice that you only use for that character. That's one thing, and because that creates a bit of a physical connection, and because your brain is gooey and can be tricked again and again and again, holding dice will start eliciting memories of that particular character. Something about the color, something about the design. Your brain will start connecting those two things. So every time you hold those dice, you'll start thinking about the character a little more, even if it's not outwardly perceptible to you.
Right.
Because I do some theater stuff. I have clothes I only wear on stage. Those are my stage clothes.
Yeah.
And I find myself in a specific mindset when I put them on.
Yeah.
Dice can be that. So that's what I say when I think of costuming. Another thing that I'm a big fan of is give yourself a note card. Now, it doesn't need to be a real note card. It could be in Google Docs, and you could just keep it up on your phone as you play, or something like that. But give yourself a little half page, and keep it updated. At the end of every session, just look at it, and it should have a few different things on there. Your character's name, just so you know who it is. Mm-hmm. What does your character want? What is your character's biggest want? Perhaps there's a mansion full of ghosts you want to take care of.
Yeah.
But for my character, it's even bigger than that. It's my family is gone and my ancestral home has been overrun. I want to take back my home. Yes. That's a big want.
Yeah.
And you read that, cool, that's my big want. And then under it, the 2 or 3 top of mind things right now. Right now, I want people in this town to respect me. Or, I really want to, find a long lost cousin that I know was not in the mansion when it got overrun. So you have your big want and then you have your little wants. You can then have a couple of things below that. And this is like an acting tool is, what do I want and what is in the way of my want? So you have your big want, you have maybe 1 or 2 little wants, and then what are all the things that are preventing that?
Yeah.
And then boom, you just have motivation in there. If you are the kind of player that wants to speak in voice, give yourself like a line or 2 about what your character sounds like.
Yeah.
Just like as a reminder, like speaks with a vague Scottish accent.
Yeah.
Or speaks in my voice, but a little deeper. Anything like that. And that's kind of all you really need. It takes you 30 seconds to update it at the end of every session. You just look, okay, the name's still the same. Big want's still the same. Oh, I did something on that little one. I'm going to change that. My little want is now I want a pet.
Yeah.
I need to find a pet that can be a source of comfort. Cool, that's your new want. And what are the things that are in my way? If you really want to spend an extra 10, 15 seconds doing it, keep some kind of, I call them index card notes about, things to be true in the world, like your principles as a person.
Yeah.
I'm kind, but I think bad people need to be punished. Or, my character that with the mansion and the ghosts, and I just discovered this in the last session I played a week or 2 ago, really hates it when other noble-born folks behave badly.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that until it kind of came up. And so I add that to my list. It's like, what are my guiding principles? So you've got your wants, the things that stop you, and then maybe a couple of guiding principles. And just keep it updated at the end of every session. Like just as people are packing up their dice and throwing out their leftovers, just look and make sure it's all still the same. And then when you sit down at the next session a month from now, you're going to look at that index card as a reminder of who it is. And then just say a couple of lines in your voice if you're speaking in that voice. And then that might be enough. Now, there's another thing the GM can do to make it easier, and that's doing a roundtable recap at the start of every session. Like, hey, everybody, it's been a month. I want everyone to just start telling me what they remember from the last session. It could be things that happen to everyone. It could be things that happen just to you. It could be the fact that someone bent over and tied their shoe and that's all you remember. And everyone starts sharing those things, jogs their memories. And then, the GM can just fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Okay, you remember you tied your shoes. You remember you got into a fight at the bar. You remember you found a laser rifle. Cool. All of that's true. Here's what I remember as the GM.
Yeah.
You made it to that space station. You had no money to your name, so you had to kind of sneak past customs. And, then you found this bar, and in that bar you met your contact who didn't trust you, so you had to do something to prove your value to the contact. And so all the players have said the things that they remember, and then the GM kind of plugs that all into the summary, and then there you go. Improv and taking notes are not completely independent things. Take notes, keep notes. Have your index card, but
I really love this sort of your top line, bottom line kind of thing of these are my main character motivations when I started. And then, every time you keep going to slowly update those. I think even throwing in a general mood or something that you're thinking about can help with consistency of my person's pissed right now. Is really angry. So remember that when you start playing them again.
Yeah. That's a kind of a great last thing to write in your notes.
Yeah.
So you have your index card. That's the, if hey, you're out and you need a substitute player, hand them the index card. That's that's what should be on the index card. Your notes, I think all players should keep notes. Your notes at the very end, the last thing you write for your session notes are how is your character feeling at the end of the session? Yeah. Because between that, because that's great advice, between that and your index card, you kind of have everything you need to within a couple of minutes, kind of sink back into your character a little bit, or at least reacquaint yourself with their motivations.
Okay. Yeah, I so agree. And one last quick question about characters before we move to GMs, because I think that we have a lot to talk about there as well. When it comes to characters, Franco, one of my co-hosts, constantly is saying how it's sort of a Socratic fallacy to expect characters to always be consistent because people aren't consistent.
Yeah.
And so it's just like this. How do you sort of, because when I started listening to, actual plays or whatever, before I had started playing, this is 10 years ago or whatever. I remember being man, I don't, and when I started playing, I remember feeling all this pressure to act consistently with how I had been acting with this character. But campaigns can go on 4 years if you let them, So I was in a campaign at one point where it was 3 years in and I was that big want has sort of been solved. We're done kind of with that original thing, but I still have, there was 6 months left in the campaign. We were not done. And so how do you sort of think about that at those points where you're there aren't a lot of consistent options for me to take, or maybe it's super feels really bad to be consistent in a moment that you feel oh, but of course my character, even though I said he's super gullible always, would believe this witch woman who's literally opening an oven and saying climb in, there are ways to think about this. So what do you have to say about consistency and how players should feel when they're approaching a character knowing that consistency is a little bit of a fallacy? So what do you think about that?
The very first thing I would say is that you need to give yourself permission to be inconsistent. Yes. The only consistent things are cartoon characters because they don't age and the plot of the show doesn't change, Yeah. We're not consistent in life. We do not hold ourselves to that standard in life of I must be the same person every day. That's impossible. So why do we hold our characters to that? So that's the first thing, is to give yourself permission to be inconsistent. And there's two kinds of inconsistency. There's diegetic inconsistency and non-diegetic inconsistency. Your character could be friendly all the time, but you, the player, are having a bad day, so your character is less friendly. That's non-diegetic inconsistency. It's I myself do not want to play a happy character right now. I had a bad day at work. I'm hanging out with my friends. I'm just going to be in my feelings. Yeah. So allow that. Know that that is not going to change your character.
Mm-hmm.
Diegetic inconsistency, I want to reframe as evolution. You started with a character that maybe was, gullible because maybe they were from a small town, maybe because the only people they ever interacted with in their lives were people that loved them. And so they never needed to develop radar to see if anyone's going to bamboozle them.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden they're in the big scary world, and eventually they learn that they are a little gullible. Yeah. And maybe they've been bit a few times. Now maybe all of a sudden the person who is, consistently gullible is a little less consistently gullible. That's not a bad thing. That's not breaking a promise to your GM. That is saying, oh, my character has evolved. Any show that's not a cartoon where people age, they all evolve. Everything evolves, except for Seinfeld. That was one of the principles of the show is we will never evolve and we will never hug each other.
Yeah.
But we should not be held to that kind of Seinfeldian standard. Like, your characters gain levels. Your characters get better with a sword. Your characters are better at opening doors or picking locks or deciphering alien texts.
And if you think about that, it's like if you were a person and then you got so good at reading ancient, underdark language that gives you magical power if you read it correctly, that's probably going to change how you interact with the world if you're like, I have mastered this skill, this arcane skill.
Like, just as that's exactly it. Like, so think about, like, your character, as like we just talked about before, your character is more than just the stats on the sheet. Your character's evolution are more than just the levels you gain and the skills you acquire. Like, my character is, my character is, outstanding at divination magic.
Yeah.
Independent of that, maybe because of it, but maybe independent of that, he's also become a lot more empathetic. Mm-hmm. He's become a lot more trusting. Is it because he's really good at divination magic, or is it independent? It doesn't really matter. Yeah. I mean, it matters if you want it to matter, but you should evolve. Your character at level 1 and your character at level 10 are very different. Your character in session 1 and your character in session 50 are very different. Let the evolution happen. You're not freaking anybody out. Yeah. Now, what the GM could do to help facilitate that is occasionally ask the players, hey, how has your player changed and evolved over the last few months? Let's just take a minute.
Yeah.
Tell me something about your character that's kind of new to you. Yeah. Well, I realized my character really likes animals. Or, I realized my character's more civically minded than I thought he was originally. He used to just be someone that would kick down doors and rob people. So as a GM, giving them those check-in moments are good. Also, as a GM, it's best to not consistently hold your players. Like, do not prescribe things that you think that the characters would do based on who they were 50 sessions ago.
Yeah.
It's like, well, obviously, Nick, you're going to go barreling through the door with your eyes closed first because you did that once. It's like, no. Like, there's a door. Does anyone want to barrel through it? Like, allow the player to have agency. And with players having agency, eventually their characters will change very naturally. So let it happen and make note of it when it happens as a player or as a GM.
Yeah, I think this is maybe the first time this has ever happened. I talk to a lot of people and they always have really great ideas. But this is, I think, the first time that I've literally in the middle of a conversation, like typed down a sentence of like, oh, this is a good idea. I should do this before my next session. I love the idea of how has your characters changed, especially if you're in the middle of arcs or something. Like if you've just, you've beaten the Lich and now like the castle calls you back home. There's some new threat. Okay. How has your characters changed on this journey? But as all of your characters start, getting back into the caravan and heading back to wherever, players, how do you think your characters have changed in the life? And like, that's such a cool moment to allow because players, I think, and maybe you can agree or disagree. I have the thought that players, they're so obsessed with their fucking character that they would love to do that. They would love
absolutely.
To be like, hey, like this, I think that my character had this sort of thing when he realized that the vampire couldn't be killed by this, that his dad probably loved, like, whatever it is. So I think that that's such a good idea.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I agree that players are really, really obsessed with their characters. They should be.
Yeah.
a character is a player's favorite outfit.
Yeah.
You know, it's the version of you want to be in a fantasy world.
Yeah.
You don't just pick a character willy-nilly. You built it. It's important to you. They're important to you.
Yeah.
If you are in a game as a player where your GM isn't giving you the opportunities to explore your characters through dialogue and conversation and introspection, your obsession is going to funnel into how much gold do I have? How many arrows do I have?
Yeah.
I want more stuff. I want to check a thing off a list. And, you know, and that's fine too. But I would argue that for most players, even if they don't think so, it is just as enjoyable for them to sit around a literal campfire and talk about their feelings as it is to map a dungeon, as it is to solve a puzzle, because they are doing those things in character.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone will explore a dungeon. If they're a big barbarian type that's invincible, they're going to explore it by running and screaming. A thief is going to do it by exploring and looking for hidden passages. A conjurer will do it by summoning armies of various things to go and explore for them. They're doing that because they like their character. If you say, hey, characters, you don't have anything to do right now, you're sitting and splitting nachos. Talk for 15 minutes. That is going to be an equally fun circumstance. Yeah. Now, as a GM, you can do that by literally taking it out of character, saying, hey, everyone, before we start, you're on the road back to the castle. You know, the call of adventure is there. Before you get there, I want each of you to tell me, the GM, how you think your character has changed or something that has surprised you about your character. You can do that non-diegetically, out of game. Yeah. Or if your characters are really into the acting style of role-playing, you as a GM could say, this is one of my favorite things, a real chatty NPC. Like an NPC that is at the inn and sits down, says, oh boy, look at you all. You look like you've been somewhere serious. What were you just up to?
Yeah.
And then they'll tell them the adventure. And then you do a little time skip. An hour later, this guy's buying all the drinks. We cut back to him. So anyway, that was my first crush. Hey, everybody, who was the first person you felt feelings for?
Yeah.
And all the characters are going to... So you can have an NPC go around and literally ask them prompt questions that would be icebreakers at a corporate meeting.
Yeah.
And they're going to answer them in character. So that's fun too.
I think that's really fun. And this is a great transition to the GM side of this equation. Because as a GM, you don't want to push. You don't want to say like, you two have a scene, like make it sappy or whatever. So let's talk about this, because I think that's a really great way to do it. I've advocated for having a NPC whenever you need to express something in world. You know, they're in the middle of a tundra, and then like, you know, a worm erupts out of the snow, and then a man walks out of the mouth and is like, oh, sorry guys, like this road's closed.
If you see a pair of sneakers in there, just get them for me. Yeah, like... So NPCs can do so much.
Yeah, they're so versatile, and they also can be the catalyst for these changes too. If you see a character wanting to make a decision or wanting to make a change, then you can provide that for them. But going back to just sort of like a 10,000 foot view, when you're thinking as a GM, okay, I want to support my players at the table right now to have a really fun game where they can feel really invested in their characters and the story. What are the things that you find are like, it's my job to do X, it's my job to do Y? Like, what do you feel as a GM in those when you're thinking about that? So
for me, it starts even before session 0. It starts with kind of the recruiting. Yeah. Now, you and I happen to live in large metropolitan areas where we are surrounded by nerds. And so we're lucky enough to be able to kind of put out a call if we want to and say, hey, I want to run a game. This is what I want to do in the game. And a bunch of people can opt in. Yeah. Now, because of that, like you and I have kind of networks of people that all like different kinds of gaming, we could cobble together a game as a GM that we would want to play. Yeah. Not everyone is that lucky. Like some people have like 3 or 4 people they always game with and nobody else. Mm-hmm. And so some of the things are applicable if you can kind of, let's say, draft or cast a game versus if you can't. If you're doing repertory
this is such a
theater.
good point that I've yeah, that's a really great analogy. I have been feeling this so deeply recently, where I will go between the different tables that I'm a part of, and it is such a different genre of experience at each of these tables. Just basically, the people in them value different parts of the game, or they're like, there's X amount more of people at this table, or whatever it is. It's like, but it is, the composition of a table is actually so fundamental. And I didn't really think it was until recently, when I have had 3 active games that I kind of rotate between, and they're all happening kind of at the same time, so I can kind of compare them. I'm like, oh shit, this is like fundamental chemistry.
Exactly. So I think if you've got a group of people and you know who they are and you've gamed with them before, don't create a game that they are incapable of having fun in. If you're going to say, hey, if you've got a group of gamers that love kind of consequence-free hacking and slashing, and having the good team win all the time, don't say, hey, gang, I've got blades in the dark. You're going to slowly descend into madness and grievous bodily injury. But before that, you're maybe going to rob a bank. They're not going to enjoy that. You as a GM, if you want to do that, you're going to want to find a group to do that with. You would not cast Robert De Niro and Al Pacino as 20-something seductresses in a rom-com. You're not going to cast your happy-go-lucky friends that want to kill goblins in a game of profound psychological trauma. So that's one thing, is know your audience, know your game.
I want to pause you right there, because I think that this is something that needs to be said every single time a GM is thinking about starting a game, because there is a sort of philosophy that is very pervasive in this sort of hobby, that is it's the GM story. You're just living in it. You know what I mean? The GM is going to oh, I've come up with a new story. Time for me to get a table together to play the story. And I think that what you just said is such a better way of looking at it, of, hey, I have this story. You still can start there. You can be like, oh man, I have this amazing blades in the dark. We're going to rob a bank, and then we're going to lose all of our loved ones and our friends eventually too. And you're like, okay, well, that is not the game that this table will enjoy. I'm going to make a new table, or be like, I'm going to adapt this really cool bank heist that I made into a honey heist, separate game that's just a one shot for me to try it and try with my friends. I think that knowing your audience is an undervalued part of GMing when it comes to creation.
If you don't, the GM is not a GM. The GM is just a novelist. And if you walk in as the GM, it's like, hey, everyone, I've got a story. We're going to play my story. The players aren't playing anymore. The players are just going to roll dice until the number is high enough that the GM turns the page in their book. I don't. And again, you're absolutely right. A lot of GMs think that way. I'm not going to say they're wrong. I'm just saying you really should write a book. Write a book.
I want to read this book, but write the book.
Yeah, sounds good. Write a book. There are so many different types of media you can use to convey the story inside you. Play D&D, or play Blades in the Dark, or play Masks, or play Roll20, or whatever it is, because that's the best way to tell this story. So as a GM, I know, okay, Nick's going to be in this group, and improvisers X, Y, and Z are going to be in the group. Okay, 5. What is a story I would like to tell with them? I know that they're quick. I know that they're fun. I know that they're not scared of diving into deep topics. So I'm going to create kind of a skeleton of, this is ultimately going to be a story of redemption for the crew of a pirate ship. And maybe that is the extent of what I script. Everything else is what the players want, as they are loudly shouting it during session 0. So if you have kind of a small group, that's what I recommend, is know who you're playing with. Don't make it your story. It's not your story. It's our story. and be very limited with what you want. Like, don't map out the last scene of the game in 100 sessions. You don't know what that is. And if you as the GM do, then ultimately your players, no matter what they do, have lost agency. Because no matter which way they go, it's still going to be a battle in the throne room.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't want a battle in the throne room.
Absolutely. I agree with this too. Like the way that I like to prepare does have a little bit of like directional, like my most successful campaign, the one that I always treasure the most, my first like long-term GMing, I did have a sense of like, oh, there's something bad under that mountain. And like, that's going to be a problem towards the end of this story. But like you said, but you don't say like, they're going to find this cave and go down this thing to find this, whatever that activates that. Like, that's just, like you said, novel. I just wanted to pull out because I think it's such a good way to put it. And I haven't heard it put this way before. The novelization, like turn page metaphor you made of like, if you do not actually accept what your characters are giving you in a real way that alters this world and your story, and you are responding to them, you are literally just saying, keep rolling that dice until you hit like a 15 or higher and let me know, and then I'll read the next paragraph.
Read my book. Read my book.
Yeah, exactly. Read the book.
Roll dice until I say so, then read my book.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now there's a way to kind of flip that a little bit in a way that's really fun. And I refer to it as kind of the gate system. So let's say you're a GM that really wants to script it out. And let's not talk about a whole campaign. Let's just talk about a session. The session could be, okay, I want them to go to a bar. And in the bar, they're going to meet a contact. And the contact is going to say, yep, there's a key. The key is held in this camp. You got to go. You got to kill everyone in the camp. You got to get the key. You then got to open the cage. You got to rescue the prince. That's really scripted. What you could do instead as a GM is just create gates. They cannot leave the bar until they know where the key is. And then the next gate is they get the key. And then the next gate is they open the door. So if you have really improv-minded players, the best thing to do is, all right, you all walk up to the bar. You have a feeling your contact is in here. You open the door. I want everyone to describe the bar for me.
Yeah.
And the first person could say, well, it's completely empty. Ooh, nice. That means that everything I could have written down about a full bar is off the table. And then maybe someone else says, yeah. And nobody's been in here for years. It's cobwebs everywhere. Okay, cool. What else? Oddly, you hear music in the distance. Okay, so I, as a GM, if I was having people read my story, it was going to be a big crowded bar and there was going to be an Aragorn type in the back smoking a pipe and telling you where a key is. No. The players told you what they wanted and it was something totally different. Yeah. They wanted to explore an empty bar that maybe is haunted.
Yeah, cool. and also even if you're like, I really want there to be a full bar or whatever, there's like, they've given you such an amount of material. Like maybe the bar has an illusion cast on it so that because it's like a speakeasy type thing. Maybe it's just a speakeasy and under the bar they find another thing that leads to a hop in place. Like just don't discount what they say because they are going to tell you what they want.
The players, and this is something that like you should put on a cross stitch and hang like off your GM screen. The players are always telling you what they want. Yeah. Their first idea, it's like, okay, you're fighting a goblin. What do? Whatever they tell you is the best idea they have, or it's the thing that is the most fun. Yeah. So even if my idea of fun is like, I want them to walk into a crowded bar. Yeah. The four of them have said, we want it to be a super spooky abandoned bar. Cool. Yeah. 4-1. Cool. And if I want there to be a really cool bar, because I like saw some really cool thing on Reddit about like a fun trick with like a bar game. You know what? We're meeting in 3 weeks. I'm going to do it then.
Or an NPC is walking by as they walk out with the key being like, oh, you should do that stupid haunted bar. There's this big bar over here. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you can say, it's like, well, I as the GM don't want to discount my own work. I made a cool bar. All right, cool. We're going to stop in this other bar. But like, but the gate was they can't leave until they find the contact. Yeah. Cool. The contact is really an old note that you found under a floorboard. It gives you the same information as if there was an Aragorn sitting in the back.
Or it's a skeleton and they have to talk with dead to like be able to get the contact information.
Like,
good stuff.
And that's the funny thing is, and this is something real that I really like too as a GM. this I've borrowed, I think, from, because I do the improv and role playing class I teach is also a panel I do at Penny Arcade Expo and other cons. One of the panelists on it, an author named Austin Habershaw, who just wrote a great book, by the way, called If Wishes Were Retail. It's about a genie that works at a mall. It's fantastic. It's like it's a page turner. But anyway,
do you have it? Because I would love to borrow that from you.
Yeah, I'll bring it next time I see you. It's
okay, cool.
It's outstanding.
Yeah.
But anyway, Austin once said, oh my goodness, I got so excited about Austin's book.
Oh no, what have I done?
I forgot his sage piece of advice. Well, there is one thing that he once said that's just great advice regardless, which is the GM gets to cheat, the players get to win. So that's a really important thing.
I love that. Ooh, love that.
GM gets to cheat, players get to win. If you'll indulge me, what were we just talking about? I may be able to maneuver the brain back to it.
We were talking about the bar. The if you really have a great bar that you want people to see, then you can get them to do that. But don't ever tell your table that their idea is wrong. Yeah.
Thank you. This is it. The dice will tell you if something's a good idea or not. So your players are constantly telling you what they want. Your players are constantly telling you what they enjoy the most. As a GM, your job shouldn't be, it's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
All the other players should not say, no, that's a stupid idea. If the first person says, well, this bar is empty, I want to smash up the floorboards. Sometimes, and by sometimes I mean all the time, if someone makes a bold assertion about what they want to do, all the other players are like, no, wait a second, hold on, let's talk about it. Why? Why is talking about it fun? Smash up the floorboards. Roll the dice. Yeah. If you get a natural 20 or whatever it is, good news, it's under the floorboards. If you don't, well, something got in the way. It's not because the barbarian's an idiot. It's not because the barbarian's idea is bad. You're not going to chastise the barbarian. The barbarian is just one for simple action. And the first thing to do is, if you can't see it, smash the floor up and see if it's under the floor. Cool. So
and even if they fail, but you want to honor them, you can say you start smashing the floorboards, you hear a crack of metal. You look down, you see that in a cage built into the foundation of this bar, there's a note. Yeah. How are you going to get it out? You can't break this through this.
And by the way,
whatever
that might be a whole other story.
Yeah, exactly.
You're looking for a golden key. You smash up the floorboard, you don't find it, but you definitely find a third of a treasure map. Is it real or not? Who knows? Yeah. Just honor it. Oh, the one thing I want to add about what we were talking about a few minutes ago is when you have a group of improvisers or a group of players and you get to kind of draft them.
Yeah.
One thing that's really cool, and you could also do that if you're playing with the same folks again and again, create kind of a constitution during session 0 or right before. That's a huge, important piece of information I tell to every GM is you can tell the players that you're going to play with, hey, I'm going to run a game on a pirate ship, and it's going to be about ultimately redemption.
Yeah.
Who's interested? And if 5 people are interested, great. They've opted in. The idea of pirates and redemption, they're in with. Yeah. Then the next thing is, okay, we now have a bunch of kind of sliders and toggles here. Do you want combat all the time, or do you want combat none of the time?
Yeah, we talk about this all the time with session 0. It's so important to do. And I will also stress as a GM not to do it the opposite way, because I've tried that and it failed horribly, which is don't go out and say, what are you all interested in? I'll run whatever. Because it's, especially with improvisers, but I think with anyone, people will just will check all the boxes that even remotely interest them. And then you're like, oh, how do I do a space opera, Western, whatever, set in a steampunk world of 1927? It's that's really hard.
My logic is, take your vitamins, try to live for another few decades, give yourself enough time to play all the things.
Yeah.
Don't try to squeeze it all into this next session, this next game. Yes. I want to do something about pirates. I want to do something about a spaceship. I want to do something about ancient Greek mythology. Cool. At least give your players something. Essentially, you as the GM, because you're going to be putting in a lot of work, you want it to be fun for you.
Yeah.
So if you say, hey, I want to run something in ancient Greece, something with mythology and the gods.
Yeah.
if that's all you want, if you would be happy with any game that checks that one box, whether it's full of combat or no combat at all, or full of intrigue or no intrigue at all, or full of acting or no acting at all, great. But if you say, I really want to run a combat-heavy game in ancient Greece,
Yeah.
well, then you just say that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the pre-session zero stuff,
Yep.
is you kind of allow people to opt in, and you tell them all the non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Then everything that's not a non-negotiable, good news, is a negotiable, and that's what session zero is for.
And I think too, going back to like our earlier parts of this conversation, it also helps set your players when they're coming up with their characters and trying to make something that's going to fit. If they have a genre, if they have sort of agreed upon touchstones that they can use for their stuff when they're making, you know, those decisions about, my character always uses a rapier. Why is that? It's not just because it's a finesse dex weapon that I need. It's also because we're doing a pirate ship campaign. Oh, well, it turns out that he was taught to fight up on the mast. And so he is always doing sort of like fencing sort of techniques because the footways are so thin. And so that's why he always uses a rapier. He's really good at fencing type stuff. You know, like that kind of thing, by giving them a touchstone on which to build like a really solid foundation that the GM isn't being waffly on, allows people to make decisions a lot easier.
Absolutely.
And kind of going into like our last question here, as a GM, when you are looking around at your players and they are having a hard time doing the part that they have said to you they're excited about, maybe this is one of those things where you've drafted a group, or maybe it's just a random group that has come together. You don't know what their synergies will be as players. However, they've all expressed to you in some way, I really want to play like a really character focused, interesting, like acting heavy or like character heavy game. As a GM, how do you make that happen if you see it starting to struggle at the table? Because I've heard from a ton of GMs where they're like, I'm so down for that type of game. But then I say, like, you open a spooky door and inside there's a spooky room. What do you do? And then there's just like silence because people are feeling uncomfortable. They're not feeling confident, whatever it is. As a GM, what would you suggest sort of like bringing into the mix to help with that?
So this is something that happens, I think, a lot with new gamers.
Yes, for sure.
And as a GM, now, and this is something we can borrow right from video games. Modern video games have difficulty settings, and it's a beautiful thing. And if players want to turn Baldur's Gate 3 down to easy, that's not going to make it any less of a game.
Yeah.
So there's no stigma to it. So it's like, oh yeah, we would love to play super atmospheric, like a super atmospheric horror game with a lot of creepy characters, and I want to stay in character and stuff like that. And if they're down for that, and then you walk them through the spooky door into the spooky room, and maybe there's like a spooky person in a spooky hood asking spooky questions, and they freeze up when you ask what to do. I think one thing you shouldn't do is say, all right, pause. It looks like you guys are having a tough time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Like, you can do that, but I try to reserve that for moments where someone is emotionally unsafe.
Yes.
Like someone X's out of the game, then we talk about it.
Yeah.
But they want to succeed. They've asked this. Like, I would love to run a 4.4 second 40-yard dash like wide receivers in the NFL. I'm not going to do it, but I want to try. And I would hate if after I run an 8-second 40-yard dash, the coach says, whoa, looks like you're having a lot of trouble. What do you want to do instead? No. What you do instead, what I recommend is say, okay, this is the spooky person and the spooky thing. What do you want to do? And if they're paused and they don't know what to do, say, unless you have a great idea, or unless you have an idea, I have 3 options for you. That's the way to make it a little easier.
Yes.
Is you're limiting their choice. You gave them infinite choices and they didn't want to choose from infinite. All right, shrink it down. 3. All right.
I think this is huge. Yeah. Oh my God. It's great advice, because it's why TikTok is so popular. It doesn't say, what video would you like to watch after every 15-second video? It just kind of provides you with something that you would probably like. So as a GM, you can also, I think that this is a great, I do this all the time, especially for new people, because like you said, I feel like the biggest thing that a new person has to learn is that there is nothing wrong for them to say. But at first you don't really know that. So at first you're sort of like, there is something wrong. I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a huge hurdle. So I think that that's a great way to
you can also decrease the pressure before that even happens. So for instance, like they're in the spooky room. They're tactically, they're in the moment. They don't know what to do. Give them some choices. If you know they're about to go do something like that, one of the most like kind of typical tropey things that happen to gamers is they go to a fancy party and then it's chaos.
Yeah.
So some players love that. Most players love that. If you've got new players and you think that they might struggle with infinite choices once they're at the party, or once they're in the creepy mansion, or once they're on the abandoned space station or whatever, you can take a moment and say, all right, you folks are heading to the party. What is the one goal that each of your characters would like to accomplish when you get there? It's like, well, I want to make some business contacts. Okay, cool. Bill, you're going to be making that's your goal. Bill, you're going to try to make business contacts. Jess, what do you want to do? Well, I would love to see if anyone knows about my twin sister. Okay, cool. That's what you want to do. So before they're in the high stakes, quote unquote, party, or before they're in the high stakes, quote unquote, creepy mansion, they've already choreographed what they want to do. And it's not for your benefit. You're a GM, you know what you're doing. It's for theirs.
Yeah.
Because when they clam up in that moment, they'll say, oh, crap, I don't know what to do. Well, I am looking for my long lost sister. I would like to find someone rich looking and ask him if they know people. Great. So they can kind of pre-choreograph their moves. For your benefit as GM, sure, but you'd be fine without it. But it's really for their benefit, too.
Yeah, my friend Michael used to say, don't surprise, impress, which I think is such a good advice to GMs, because players might have a momentary like, oh, I didn't see that coming. That's really cool. That's awesome. But what you actually want is people to be like, holy shit, I see what's coming. Like, oh my God, this is so good. Like, I can't believe that you pulled this on us, like that kind of thing. And it gives them time to because you've choreographed it in a way that's like really great, and they are super invested. And then they've already planned for what they want to do. Like, I think that jumping people in the game is not maybe the best way to get them to engage.
Now, I love that so much. I want to put a little coda at the end of it. Surprise the characters, impress the players.
Yes.
Because this is something, you know how I said, like, if you have a story in your heart, find the right media for that story. Here's what you get with role-playing games that you don't get with other media. You are able to, as a GM, interact with characters and players separate from each other.
Yes.
So there are circumstances in which the players know something bad is going to happen. The characters don't. The characters will be very surprised when that thing in the mountain comes out. The players have known about it the entire time.
Yes.
So the difference in what my character knows and what my player knows is such an amazing narrative technique, because it goes both ways. Like, you, the player, don't know how to hack a computer. Your character does.
Yeah.
You, the character, don't know there's a scary thing in the mountain. You, the player, does.
Yeah.
So there are things that each side doesn't know, and you as a GM get to play with that as a storyteller. And that is why you should game.
It's so great, too, because you literally can talk to your fellows while the story is happening. Like, it's basically being in a writer's room and then being like, and then what happened?
Yeah.
It's like, great. John, thanks for coming on. And I am so excited to have you back on in the future. I have so many questions. Anything you'd like to plug before we let you go today?
Sure. So depending on when this airs, if you all like sketch comedy with a spooky twist, there's a wonderful sketch comedy show called The Nova Show in Somerville, Massachusetts, that's coming up in October. So that's something that's kind of time specific. There's also, and this is something I'm really, really proud of, there's a live play that myself and some other really fantastic actors are doing called Little League. So, like Little League, but with a B at the beginning, that's about kind of super powered teenagers dealing with capitalism and spooky things that aren't capitalism. But let's be honest, everything spooky is ultimately capitalism. So that's really fun. That's 150 sessions, really beautifully produced, very improv heavy. So, Little League is my non-time specific recommendation. The Nova Show is my time specific recommendation.
That's amazing. Thanks again to John Serpico for coming on. If you want to be part of Tabletop's greater community, then you can go to our website, tabletoppod.com. You can hit the Discord button and get access to our Discord server, or you could send us something in from that contact form. We love hearing your letters, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye.